Hi, welcome to our channel Good New. As we all know, Huawei used to stand for honor. It represented Chinese high-tech businesses, and China used to be proud to utilize Huawei processors. The US processors in Honor mobile phones accounted for as much as 38.5%, up over 30% from previously, according to a study from April of this year, for the Honor, which is descended from Huawei. Among them, American chips have taken the place of the majority of the core high-end chips, such as primary control chips, 5G general semiconductors, and analog chips. Is it a disaster for a company with Huawei DNA to employ so many American chips? What about the honor of the return? Please turn on the notification bell and subscribe to our channel before we begin today's video. Okay, let's look at the subject we will be discussing today. There's no denying that Honor continues to be an honorable honor. Honor, the Chinese mobile phone brand with the greatest sales volume in the domestic market, won the first shipment championship with 15 million units, an annual gain of 205%, and a market share of 20%, according to the report for the first quarter of 2022 published by Sino-Us. This outcome demonstrates that China's national pride is still Honor. According to me, there are specific reasons why Honor uses a lot of American chips, and these reasons are the consequence of several elements coming together. On the one hand, Honor must raise its purchases of American chips in order to survive and advance in light of the dire global scenario and the actual disparity between domestic and foreign chip prices. This is due to both political and business factors. However, even after Huawei was penalized, the technological competitiveness and strength of domestic semiconductor producers remained insufficient. It is quite challenging to locate domestic chip makers that can quickly replace Huawei chips if Honor wants to survive and reclaim its market position. The key control, communication, and power control semiconductors that Huawei's high-silicon semiconductor had previously produced have reportedly been replaced with Qualcomm goods. For Honor mobile phones to keep their top spot, these processors are crucial parts. To accomplish their objectives, they must rely on foreign chip Goliaths because there aren't any domestic chips that can compete with Huawei. Is the use of American chips a betrayal of Honor? Failure does not follow adoption of American chips. Honor's decision to adopt American chips is a powerless one. Although this collaboration approach is not what we anticipated, it is a unique form of cooperation at a unique historical period. Can we use the patriotic catchphrase and accuse Honor of this comprador activity in light of the return of Honor that consumes a significant amount of American chips? Of course not. We cannot disparage a Chinese company that is attempting to survive by appealing to worthless public opinion. We should be realistic about the fact that Honor is forced to utilize American chips. On the one hand, Honor wants to compete internationally utilizing American chips. Nevertheless, collaboration between American chip firms and Chinese businesses is the only way to assist Chinese companies in mediating with the US government and lessen pressure on Chinese companies to face sanctions. This is true despite politics, industry, reality, inequity, refusal, and impotence. In fact, it makes me think of the episode 2 years ago when SMIC was under American export restrictions. When SMIC's statement was released at the time, several unidentified media outlets immediately called SMIC a weak coward and even claimed that SMIC was a technical comprador. In addition to helping Chinese businesses thrive, this will just make things more harder. Back then, there was SMIC, now, there is Honor, and tomorrow, maybe, more Chinese firms will face sanctions. When countries must embrace the US supply chain to live and develop and must enlist US assistance, we shouldn't hold them responsible. The growth of the domestic semiconductor sector is becoming increasingly challenging, especially as the United States is collaborating with its allies to create a semiconductor alliance akin to Chip 4. We can determine Huawei's greatness from this. One of the few indigenous corporations in China that is entirely Chinese at the moment is Huawei. There are no outside investments. Unlike Tencent, which owns a South African corporation, and Alibaba, which has an interest in Japan's SoftBank, the companies behind these two look to be very strong, but their owners are foreigners. With no foreign ownership, Huawei is the only business that can rank among the top 500 global corporations without going public. In truth, Huawei's market worth would be higher and it could generate more money if it went public, but it opted not to do so in order to keep foreign cash out of the controlled company. Another justification for not being listed is Huawei's decision to create a Chinese brand. Huawei employs 194,000 people. Additionally, it employs up to 100,000 people, the majority of whom are skilled in high technology. We would want to know, will these geniuses stay in China if Huawei is unable to offer them employment and pay? Or travel abroad? In addition, Huawei will pay 101 billion yuan in taxes to the government in 2020. It also continues to buy a significant amount of domestically produced assembling components, including BOE screens, Yangtze River storage chips, OLiFe camera modules, BYD camera frames, etc., all of which are subtly boosting domestic companies' profits and the growth of China's GDP. Supporting domestic products will also promote domestic production and development, domestic consumer confidence in domestic goods, national pride and cohesiveness, national wealth loss, employment possibilities, and many other advantages. Toyota is the brand of vehicle that the Japanese drive, while Samsung is the brand of phone that the Koreans use. At the same time, any small rise in China's domestic GDP translates into the possibility of employing between 1 million and 1.3 million people. Even though it appears to be only a statistic, it affects thousands of families and ways of life. So, the enormous societal value that Huawei can provide is this. For instance, Huawei ranks number 1 in China with more than 85,000 R&D patents. More than 400 billion yuan are invested in research and development, while the nation annually forks out more than 100 billion yuan in taxes. It brings in a lot of money to China each year. It has so far accumulated to 1.39 trillion yuan since 2000. Overall, the episode of Honor should have made us aware that for the local semiconductor sector to thrive, it must first endure humiliation and survive. But only through surviving can we grow, and only through growth can we evolve. We can only bring the morning about via the night. There is no need to assign guilt because utilizing American chips is still honorable. My opinion is that the local semiconductor business should actively seek collaboration with the global semiconductor industry in order to identify solutions to lessen difficulties and resolve issues. China Chip still has to work on improving herself while advancing in a challenging situation. In terms of public opinion, we shouldn't employ moral abduction to constrain the living space of domestic enterprises when homegrown chips cannot be substituted. Thanks for having your watching in this video. You can add your ideas or suggestions below. Please keep following our channel and like our videos.